Hey, it's me, Nalthazar, and welcome to another episode of Achieving Perfection. In this episode, we're going to be going over the new Titanomachy PvP Coalition event. So, this is going to be for Node 1, the Gods node. Now, per the usual, I'm going to go ahead and show off the decks that I would recommend for this event, and then I'm going to get into the node itself, so what are our objectives, and then finally, I am going to get into deck building. Now, I'm going to do something that I pretty much never do. I'm going to give myself a quick plug, but if you take a look at the description or in the description of this video, you will see that I have a Patreon. If you are the type of person who is open to supporting content creators and you like my channel, I genuinely appreciate the support to the channel. It helps me keep my VIP subscription, and it also helps with my amazing supporting wife in showing her that there is value in me continuing to make all of these videos. I love doing it. I'm going to keep doing it regardless either way, but it helps with getting more consistent uploads going. So that's that. All right. Now for our decks. For newer players, I would suggest using something like this right here. And then for players with more complete collections, I would go ahead and use one of the following two. So if you are not a person who got the Nyssa bundle, then I would use something like this. And if you did get the Nyssa bundle, then I would use something more like this right here. You also may notice that my voice is a little bit off. I'm sick again. I know. All right, so the node itself. We have, per the usual, 3 objectives. We need to win the fight. We need to activate a Planeswalker ability 2 or more times during the fight, and we need to cast 4 or more enchantments during the fight. So the activating a Planeswalker ability twice is pretty easy. The casting 4 or more enchantments is the part that you're really going to want to make sure that you keep an eye on. There is a permanent support, and the support that you have for this node is going to be different from the one that your opponent has. So yours is going to have 2 abilities. So as long as your devotion to a color is 6 or more, your mana bonus in that color is increased by 2. And then Constellation, your creatures get +X until end of turn. X is the number of enchantment cards you control. Now, because of the support being 5 colors, I'm actually going to go ahead and assume that we can use any of the 5 colored walkers in this particular node for gods. At the very least, because it is casting enchantments, I'm going to assume that you can probably use green and white, given that Calyx is. So that is part of my reasoning for the decks I chose. Now, let's go ahead and get into the decks themselves, right? So for the decks themselves, we've got, the permanent support. As long as your devotion is 6 or more, your mana bonus is increased by 2. That's going to be pretty easy to do, honestly, especially if you're going mono-colored, which is not too bad for this event. And then Constellation, so whenever you play an enchantment or an aura, your creatures get +X until end of turn. X is the number of enchantment cards you control. So ideally, that does not enable you to kill your opponent before you cast your 4 enchantments, but make sure you're keeping an eye on that. Then the permanent support for your opponent is at the beginning of your opponent's turn, they create up to 3 graveyard gems. And then when your opponent casts a card from their graveyard, they gain 3 loyalty. I somehow doubt that we'll see too much in the way of graveyard shenanigans from our opponents here, but maybe we do. But either way, I wouldn't worry about that too much. Now, for newer players, I would advise using something like this. It takes an age-old combo in Puzzle Quest and brings it back into the limelight, and that is the Murder Investigation, which is an enchantment, and when a creature you control is destroyed, summon a 1/1 soldier, and Knightly Valor, which is a support that summons a 2/2 knight with vigilance, and then gives your first creature 2/2 in vigilance. So let's say that the knight token dies, then the knight token dies, and Murder Investigation is going to summon that 1/1 soldier. That 1/1 soldier thanks to our Knightly Valor, is going to be getting +2/+2 and Vigilance. And so it's going to be blocking things. And so now let's say that Murder Soldier token dies, then we immediately get another one for it dying, and that other one is going to get, yep, you guessed it, 2/2 and Vigilance. So this is a fantastic combo for keeping yourself in the game, preventing damage, killing your opponent's creatures, and is a downright hassle to deal with. So if you have these two cards, by all means, throw them together. They're both enchantments, so it's going to help with that Spellsmith objective. And then as for activating 2 loyalty abilities with Gideon, probably not going to be too hard. It's going to be a slower match. For the rest of the cards, we've got a new enchantment from Theros Beyond Death, and it's a white one. It's 8 mana, and when it enters the board, you gain 4 life, create 2 human soldier tokens. This is going to once again go well with that Knightly Valor. And then when this support is destroyed, pick one of the first 2 different enchantments from your library and fetch that card. This is nice for a few reasons. 1, it has 1 shield, and 2, it fetches enchantments. So if you already have either Knightly Valor, or Murder Investigation, then you just use the Omen of the Sun to fetch the other when it breaks. Now, let's say that you already have both, then you can just use it to fetch whichever one you want to make it so that you can get more shields, right? So they only have 2 shields, so you're going to want to boost their shields. Idyllic Grange is going to convert gems to white, which is very useful, and it's also going to buff one of your creatures permanently with +2/+2. So you can give it to your little Vigilance creature and see that they kill more things. Now, another card that's going to help with all of this enchantment stuff is if you wound up getting it from Eldraine, there is this Arcanist's Owl. It's 9 mana for a 4/4 with flying, which is decent in its own right. And then when this creature enters the battlefield, pick one of the first 3 artifact or enchantment cards from your library and fetch that card. So this is just going to help you with getting those enchantments that you need, making sure that you get them down, and you complete that Spellsmith objective. No, my room doesn't stink. I don't know why I'm thinking of smells, but I clearly suck at saying Spellsmith. So, all right. Beyond that, it's nice to have a first strike creature in Gideon. It makes it so that when you use Gideon's first ability, mine is not leveled up. You want it to be like, I think it's 1 or 2 more levels than mine is, so that first creature gets 1/1, or so that creature gets 1/1 flying and vigilance. But you give vigilance to a first striker, and it's kind of like a board wipe unless your opponent has super crazy cards. And we have removal for that later in the deck. So I like Knight of the White Orchid. I like it because it's also going to convert gems to white. But if you have other first strike options, by all means, go ahead, throw them in. You can use little double strikers. You can use other decent first strikers. Whatever you have with first strike really is going to do the job. I also really like Reverent Hoplite in this deck. So when this creature enters the battlefield, create X human soldier tokens. X is your devotion to white up to 6. These are the same human soldier tokens that our enchantment earlier is going to be making. So Omen of the Sun also makes the same human soldier tokens, so they occupy the same creature slot. Furthermore, 12 mana for up to 9-10 worth of creature is very solid at the lower ranks, so it's pretty darn good. And beyond that, your opponent is going to have to use 2 removal cards to get rid of them, or alternatively, you have Knightly Valor out, and now you've got 2 more things that are going to be blocking and killing things. So this one's pretty decent. Also, this is the same devotion threshold as your permanent support. That's going to be permanently increasing your mana bonus by 2. So pretty nice. At least I think so. I like it. Now for other removal, we've got Final Payment. This is a great removal card. Destroy target creature. You lose 4 life. I particularly like this for newer players because your mana bonuses probably aren't going to be as high. And 5 mana is not a prohibitive mana cost for destruction. Same thing for Justice Strike, but it's 6 mana, so once again, not a particularly prohibitive cost, and gets rid of the big baddies in this game. Finally, we've got Disenchant, but if you have other forms of support removal, just make sure you have support removal for this node. You're going to need it. You're really going to need it. If you have a card that gets rid of more than 1 support, then use that. So because people are going to have to cast 4 or more enchantments, we're going to be seeing a lot of them, and Disenchant specifically will make sure that it destroys enchantments. So I like that it's only 5 mana, just like Final Payment. This deck should be just fine in getting you a perfect score. I'm going to be using something very similar to this on my silver account. Now, for players who have more complete collections, what do you want to do? Why do you want to use Nyssa Worldwaker here? Well, I like Nyssa Worldwaker because you're going to be activating that first ability a whole ton. Because of that gem conversion, you're going to be able to do it really easily. Furthermore, there are a lot of really good green enchantments. So Killer Instinct is an enchantment. Season of Growth, which pairs fantastically with Nyssa, is an enchantment. Omen of the Hunt is going to convert to just green and is an enchantment and is going to fetch you a land, which is awesome. Zendikar's Royal is also an enchantment, and you'll notice that all of these cards except for Killer Instinct are green, so they're going to help with increasing your devotion. Now, once we get past those, we've got some of my more typical cards. So we've got Castle Garenbrig for the land. This is green conversion and is going to create an activated gem that's going to convert more to green. We've got Nissa's Revelation, which is going to draw us cards and gain us life. We've got Death Sprout, which is creature removal and is going to fetch us Garenbrig. And we've got the Great Aurora. I particularly like this one for this node. I actually like it more than I like Casualties of War. I do absolutely love Casualties of War, but the Great Aurora is going to get rid of everything, and you can very well expect in Platinum to see at least some kind of Starfield of Nyx deck, and you're going to want a way to get rid of it. So just being able to get rid of individual supports doesn't tend to get rid of Starfield of Nyx. Like you're just relying on RNG. So the Great Aurora is kind of like a nope, no Starfield of Nyx. So this will help you with that. For creatures, I would run Nyx Bloom Ancient if you have it. This is going to convert a whole bunch of gems to green for you. It's going to make it really easy to activate your abilities. It's got Berserker, so it's going to kill things, and is an enchantment, so it will count as casting enchantments. And then finally, this one is something I haven't been showing too much on the channel, but I still really like it. It's Woodland Bellower. This is going to help you with... Sorry, the cough. Sick. Yeah. This is going to help you with fetching the Ancient, right? So fetches the next green creature, gives it mana. So it's going to fetch itself. It's going to fetch the Ancient. And so you're going to find that you'll kill your opponent pretty quickly. I've been doing some testing with this deck. It's very effective. Or for you fans of a certain series that no one will be able to guess, it's super effective. All right, so that's Nyssa Worldwaker deck number 1. Why do I keep popping out of that? Nyssa Worldwaker deck number 2. If you got the Enthusa bundle, by all means, you should be using an Etalon of Blossoms deck on this node. This card is, I think, maybe the strongest card in Standard right now. I don't know. I actually like it more than Urza. It's really, really good. So this card is going to make it so that with Constellation, so whenever you play an aura or an enchantment, draw a card. That card is disabled until the beginning of your next turn, then convert 3 gems to green. So in my testing with this, getting the 4 enchantments down was super easy. Now for our enchantments in this deck, we're going to be using Nyx Bloom Ancient. We've got the Etalon itself. We've got Omen of the Hunt, which is going to convert gems for us. And we've got Killer Instinct. Yes, I know that that's just 4 enchantments in the deck, and we need to cast 4 of them, but honestly, it's really easy, especially with Court of Calling. Court of Calling is going to fetch creatures, and it gives them full mana straight to the hand, which means that we're going to be casting them. If you do not yet have Etalon of Blossoms on the field, you always want to target this thing first. This thing gives you so many cards and so much mana that you're going to be casting everything really easily. Nyx Bloom Ancient is what you're going to be targeting second. Now, because of Nyssa's first ability that makes all the tokens, you really don't have to worry about losing your Etalon of Blossoms to Killer Instinct, but make sure that when you play Killer Instinct, you either have a reinforcement down or you have these little tokens. I mean, I guess they'll be reinforced, so whatever, right? Auras. Auras are going to be helping with the Constellation. So Hydra's Growth is my favorite because I do not have Chromanticore. If I had Chromanticore, I would definitely be testing that out. Or I should say I would be using it instead of Warbriar Blessing. So if you have Chromanticore and you have all these other cards, use that instead of Warbriar Blessing. If you do not have Chromanticore, use this. So Hydra's Growth gives a creature 2/2 permanently, and then it gets +X permanently every turn, where X is that creature's base power. So for Nyx Bloom Ancient, it's going to be getting an additional 7/7 a turn, and for the Etalon, it's going to be getting an additional 4/4. When you get to Nyssa's third ability, Heart of Zendikar, assuming you use it, then your little tokens are going to be getting +2/+2. So it's best to first put the growth on the Ancient, then the Etalon, and then your tokens. I like Warbriar's Blessing more than I like the Mantle of Webs, which gives something reach, because you can put this on each of your creatures so that you spread the love around. So it makes it so they all fight, they all deal damage. It also makes it easier to take care of stuff like Razia, which is a scary creature. For removal, you'll see that I have the same kind of removal that I had in the other deck. So I'm running both Death Sprout and the Great Aurora. And then finally, I've got Castle Garenbrig for green gem conversion. Now, let's say for a moment that you aren't able to build either of my decks. What should you do? All right, the first thing you're going to want to do is go to your cards, limit to the Planeswalker colors that are allowed to be used. Once again, I'm really thinking we're going to be able to use any color for this, but we don't know for sure. You're going to want to go to your supports and then just type in enchantment. So this will narrow down what enchantments you have that you can use and that you can throw into your decks. There are some other enchantments that I really like. I did not include. If you have more support slots in white, so my Gideon only has 4, but if you have more of them, I particularly like, there's this uncommon white one over here, Conclave Tribunal. It's going to exile an opposing creature, so this gives you removal from the enchantment slot or from the support slot, and it's an enchantment. So win-win, right? Other particularly good ones are going to basically be dependent on what you're using. I really would not use Mirror March for this, just because you'll find that you kill your opponent too quickly, and then you'll have a harder time meeting your objectives, right? If you did not know, all of the sagas are enchantments. So if you have any of the sagas, by all means, go ahead. You can toss these in. These will count for your enchantments. Be a little bit careful, right? So you saw that I was using Killer Instinct, but if you fetch an enchantment creature into play, that does not count, right? So we have to actually cast those creatures or those enchantments. They can't just be summoned. So just keep that in mind. Other than that, some other powerhouses include High Alert. However, High Alert is kind of scary because you kill really quickly. And then back to white, just because white is amazing for enchantments. We've got Suppression Bonds. This is going to disable your opponent's first creature, which is going to give you a little bit more longevity, which is really nice. And then finally, the last one that I will go over here is just if you're worried about running into tokens, because you very well, between this node and the Titans node, will see a lot of them, Leyline of Singularity is a fantastic option for this node. Now, I'm going to really quickly show off one other card just in case, and that is, I imagine that we'll see quite a few Gaia's Revenges this event, so having Shadow Spear can be nice to get rid of Hexproof from Gaia's, and to get rid of Prevent Damage from Razia's. So just if you're in Platinum, you may wind up seeing those. You're going to want a way around them. This is a pretty good way around them. So I hope this is helpful for you. I hope you get perfect in the event, and I'll see you in the next one.